I was very encouraged. I think there is something that's happening at numerous levels that are forwarding the system opportunities for stepping forward and maybe generating a theory, research, practice intersection that's actually up to the task of having a coherent map and model that does justice to the territory in the right sort of way. And that's really exciting. I mean, that's never happened. You and I obviously both, and I've talked to other people, I think you and I carry this in a particular kind of resonant way. It's absent. I mean, this is what I flip out. I'm haunted by the problem of psychology, what I call, I can't understand why people don't care about it on the one hand. It's totally. like we're all the, theories of everything, quantum mechanics, general relativity. Listen, folks, if Ed Witten or whoever, some mathematical genius manages that, your lives don't change at all. And the meaning of the fight you just had with your wife doesn't change at all. Okay. It's like, but the idea that we don't know what mind and matter is in a scientific sense with any degree of coherence then speaks to things like corrective emotional experiencing and the longing for spiritual enlightenment and connection and what that means from the wisdom tradition. Absolutely. I mean, and there's no capacity to talk with any kind of coherence in relationship to the bridge from the atomic field of matter, which we know about scientifically, into the evolution of ourselves as organisms, into animals, into primates, into persons. And then what does it mean for us to be here today and to look out at what John Vervaeke calls the meaning crisis and wonder what the fuck we're doing, and seeing so many people, I mean, suicide's on an epidemic rate, depression and anxiety. There's just an unbelievable shattering of connection in certain ways and a shriveling of our souls. So, Nick, help us with the metaphysics of spirituality. And
well, I mean, as below, so above, right? So I experienced this. I call it a schism in my work, or the double bind, which is a famous understanding, right? Of course.
Mm-hmm. Actually, we should tell people very quickly what the double bind is.
So the double bind is
no, don't tell them that.
Okay.
Oh wait, no, go ahead and tell them.
Well, I'll speak it in a different way to make it less part of my reformation and coming away from the addiction of cognition and the addiction of cleverness and the addiction of rational complexity, meta theories, grand narratives, whatever you want to call it. I'm coming out of that addiction. And part of it for me is to be able to say things simply, but no simpler, and not create language and lingo and meaning structures that disassociate and disembody myself,
right,
and therefore fragment others, and create more what I've called this patriarchy games, like the desire to go up and up and up. And I get it because I've had that desire all my life, but part of it's been trauma driven, and I'm really owning that at the moment, right?
Right.
So for me, there's a schism, super simply, between what we feel our hearts intuit, when we're quiet enough to hear our hearts intuiting away,
right,
and what our minds think is real and concrete from our empirical understanding that has then been lensed by the modern scientific project.
Totally.
Mediated by. So we've basically been told in the atheistic world of science that only what you can measure exists. Bottom line. And if you can't measure it, who cares? Which hence gives the psychology gap, because you have a science of consciousness that doesn't believe in consciousness, which is one of the funniest ironies of the world today.
Hey, we're trying to make sense out of shit over here, Nick.
Totally. So we're going to use a method created for measuring matter to try and understand mind, which we don't even agree what it is or know what it is. In fact, we don't even really think it exists, most of us. We think it's just an epiphenomenon, but you don't even know what that is either, because that means it exists, but it can't exist because it's just neurons firing, ... Anyway, the schism is between, when I put it really simply, when I hold my child in my arms, or when I did, because I don't do it very often, although I had to recently because I was in A&E with my son, and these are really liminal moments, which / peak experiences, whatever you want to call these moments, right? Where the veil of everyday bullshit is pierced by crisis or by love or by drugs, whatever, right?
Right.
So when we feel our child, or we stand on a mountain, or we are in a flow like the movie Soul when they're playing piano, or we are in a festival dancing with random people, hugging them, whatever these moments.
Right.
When you're in a therapy session, right, and you get a moment of our hearts intuit that there is something there which is not measurable by science, or we can operationalize or instrumentalize the measurement of it, but it's not it.
Totally.
That's what we intuit. But our minds say we're not allowed to have that thought, particularly if you've grown up in a scientific tradition where you have to discount all of it or reduce it to, some kind of reductionist version of mindfulness or this or that. And I love knowing that gray matter increases in the amygdala area when we do meditation, but it's just it's an affirmation of what's real. It's not
what's real, right?
So we have this schism on the individual level,
right,
with ourselves.
Yes.
So my heart and my mind are no longer, not me now, but prior to 15 years ago, my heart and my mind, they're just metaphors, but my rational thought and my relational feeling about life are not aligned.
Totally.
That schism goes out into the next level of complexity.
That's right.
In my relationships. Then it goes out into the next level of complexity in enterprises, institutions, projects, then into systems, and it goes backwards also into our relationship to that which is deep within us.
Totally.
And I think you can reach the mystical that way up into transcendent and that way down into immanent. And ultimately they come back on like a full, totally like a full arc somewhere in the cosmos. There's an arc going on, there's a circle meeting. The sky and the earth meet, that's the beauty of the immanence and the transcendence. And so this schism affects everything. And until we repair the schism, because it's just a schism in relationship, well, not just, it is a schism in relationship. It's not schism in rational thought. So we can't repair it with mind. The mind can help us understand what and how and why. And then at some point we have to stop thinking and do work. Experiential work. And until we do that on the individual level, honestly, I don't think anything will tangibly change, even if we create a Bitcoin that plants trees, or we're going to create a theory of everything. Doesn't matter. Any of that stuff will not help us regenerate our world until we do this, what I'm calling now the great repair, that starts within and then reaches out across these relational fields. Loved ones, people like us in communitas, in fellowship, citizens as a whole, earth.
Beautiful.